Hi guys, welcome to my channel. Today I will be answering your questions and I got so many of them so that I decided to divide it into 3 different videos, although it was not easy because first I wanted to make one big video, but I asked your opinion and 70% of people on YouTube and Instagram recommended me to separate these topics. So here it is, the first video of this series. Of course, I recommend you to watch all the next videos as well. So today I will be talking mostly about Russia, the situation there, politics, my parents and people I know who are in Russia now. So please like this video to promote it. Don't forget to watch other videos if they are already posted. And let's begin. So I got the questions printed and it is easier for me to remember them. And the first one is why you left Russia. And I think you know it already, but still for some new people and to just summarize my experience, I will answer. The first reason is basically anxiety and inability to speak out my political opinions being on the territory of Russia. It's not only because the war that was started in 2022, but even before that, repressions were slowly, steadily increasing, and I was planning to leave Russia, although not so urgently. And when there was the war outbreak, it was obvious. And the second reason why I left Russia, but it's also connected to the first one, is money. Because I made income on this channel. I actually had a individual entrepreneurship set up in Russia. I was paying taxes, and it all became impossible because of the Western sanctions. Yeah, so I moved partially because this channel and also for this channel. And maybe some people will say that, oh, she moved for money, but well, isn't it already a reason? Isn't it already not normal that I, working in Russia, doing my honest job, paying taxes, now I cannot because our country cut connections with the whole world and is threatening to the whole world? Like, it's not normal. But in fact, it is possible to earn money from YouTube being in Russia, but for this you have to set up some business in Dubai. I don't know exactly how it works. Yes, maybe if I was not so scared, I could return to Russia and continue, but I have reasons to be scared. In my videos, I already said some things that violate the new Russian laws about discrediting the army or spreading fakes about the army. There might be a criminal case on me or maybe not, but what I know for sure is that recently, maybe half a year ago, the police came to my school in my hometown in the Primorsky region and ask my teachers to write characteristics on me, which in Russian schools is like a review of my behavior when I was studying in school. And I learned this from one person, and I think it is not a good sign. And probably the Spask policemen were like, what the fuck, why we have to do that? But they got some report, denunciation, and I think that this report from someone was written on me, probably not because of my videos, but because of some posts on VK. And I am also administrating group of our school, and I posted some anti-war posts there. Even if now there is no criminal case open on me, it might be if I set my foot on the territory of Russia. So I'm really scared and I will not go there. Okay, on such a positive note, let's move on. Another question: how do you and other Russians are feeling now about the mess in Ukraine? Do you have the sense that the end is near? What's your thoughts on Ukraine future? Well, I don't know what to answer. Basically, now we just wait for the Putin's death, which doesn't guarantee the end of the war, but maybe his elite will overthrow him, and in Russia it is impossible to do it other way because people just just cannot oppose armed Putin's security forces, and namely the elites can do this because as soon as some grass movement appears in Russia, the authorities immediately nip it in the bud. So the government hopes that Trump will become the president of the United States and somehow he is more friendly to Russia and will help, but I don't know. And we don't even understand what results of the war we're speaking about. Will be there a freeze conflict like in the North and South Korea, or Russia will return all the territories to Ukraine or take some of them? I'm afraid that if Russia wins, it will not stop and go for Georgia and the northern Kazakhstan. And I don't know, guys, it's just 2 years have already passed, and unfortunately, I think that the war will continue for many years. And there's a similar question: do you think it could ever become the right thing to save lives by ending the war, even if Putin wins? If you could, for how long would you keep telling your congressperson to send more weapons, even banned ones or ones that can strike inside Russia? I don't know, guys. I'm not a politician and I'm not Ukrainian, but the fact is that it is Russia who invaded Ukraine, and it is Russia who behaves like a terrorist, and I don't know if it is safe to negotiate with them and let them keep this territory that they occupied. I really don't know. And yes, it is terrible that Ukraine also bombs the regions of Russia, and I'm so sorry for people dying from both sides. But again, it feels that there's no answer, like Russia started it. I'm trying to not follow the news on this topic, but as I said, probably it will continue for some more years. People tend to think that Russians do approve Putin in general. You know, I hate it when people in the West think like this, because it is very hard to get statistics from Russia, to conduct social polls there, because basically people are scared to answer, and also our elections are totally fake, and budget workers, which is school or medicine staff, participates in falsifications. It is so not smart to think that fair elections are possible in Russia. Why Russia has low birth rate? What do you think about Russian radical feminists, feminazis? Favorite color? Favorite color is probably pink, blue, and purple. I don't know. As for feminists, I think that they are okay, and even the radical ones. In every movement, there are different people who express their position by different ways, and I'm a feminist too, so fully support feminists of Russia and of the world. And answering the first question about the low birth rate, our government takes course towards the traditional values, but people would make more children if they felt stable and safe, but they don't. Even though in Russia there are pretty good perks, the money that they give you for giving birth to kids, but it's still not enough. And I listened to some of Russian demography scientists, and some interesting fact that I learned from them is that to have a healthier population and to just have population, a normal pyramid of the demographics, you don't have to make new children, you just have to save the lives of young men, because unfortunately in Russia young men die faster than women. You just have to keep them alive and they will be fathers. Also, preferably to not send them to die at the front line. The next question: why do you hate Russia so much? I never hated Russia. I distinguish people and the government, but unfortunately now Russia in the hands of an authoritarian leader, and I lived in this country for 22 years and I saw different regions, I spoke to people from different cities, I saw how desperately poor people are. I also see this contrast between Moscow and the regions, and I think when you love something or someone, you want them to prosper, you want to help them to fix their mistakes, and you try to fix it My question is, how do you see the popular opinion in Russia developing in the future? Will more people view the West as the enemy or hope for change within Russia? I think that Russia will be more isolated and the people will have less experience of even communicating with foreigners. Because in the recent years there was this movement towards progress. Our crime statistics was decreasing with every year. It was visible and this was very good, but unfortunately now there will be a lot of crimes because of the people who return from the war. And in the Russian society in the previous years there have been more and more conversations about human rights, LGBT visibility, even though the government have been suppressing it since the 2013. And if in 2016 the whole country was laughing and judging and accusing sexual assault victims, now there are more and more conversations about that actually it's not normal, about the domestic violence. People could travel to Europe to see other life, and what is more, the Russian government cut connections with the Western educational programs. For example, in 2019 I went to the United States by a program funded by the American councils. There was a program for Russian students to study in the US, to exchange their culture, but now this organization is considered as undesirable in Russia, and you can have a criminal persecution for affiliating with this, so you cannot even use the name of this program or the logo. And that program did so much for my education and learning about this world, but unfortunately now Russian people will have less access to it. And I mean, in Russian schools they teach English. I actually got a question, do they teach English? But of course in the Soviet times they also studied English at school. Also people like to watch American Western movies. Now they will pirate them more, but Russian people are used to pirating movies, so probably some opportunities to get something from this West will be possible. I want to be optimistic about this. Don't you feel like you're being unjustly punished by the world leaders because of Putin's actions? Yes, I do feel that we are. And for example, recently Norway prohibited Russian people to enter the country through the Russian-Norway border. It is bad because many people could use this opportunity to escape Russia, dissident people or people who wanted to avoid being drafted. And I understand that, yes, the Western countries want to secure themselves from some possible Russian spies, but really, I don't know how affecting regular people will help them in this, and they still continue to buy Russian resources. So it happens as usual. Elites are okay and average people are suffering. I wonder how your relationship with parents, family, and friends who still live in Russia developed. Don't you fear of your family getting in trouble when you criticize the Russian government? Are your parents going to come visit you in Georgia? And yeah, I am scared for my family in Russia because, again, I am not the main goal of the Russian government. But what if some crazy person, some war veteran, decides to make a revenge to them for my videos? But overall, I was surprised how many people asked me, do you still keep connection with your parents? How did they approve your immigration to Georgia? And such a big amount of such questions made me sad because it made me to think that probably if people ask this so much, they have good relationship with their parents and they communicate with them often. And I do know some people who talk to their parents on daily basis. But as for me answering this question, I do keep connection with them, but it's hard to explain. I communicate with my mom maybe once a month. We used to have calls once a month, now more rarely, and chatting sometimes. And this question about are they going to visit you in Georgia? I wish in our family we had such a habit, a pattern of communicating and visiting each other. I wish it was like in other families. And sometimes I'm so surprised when I see that people communicate with their parents or that it is important for them to meet in some country. I know so many Russian people here in Georgia who invited their parents or relatives to visit them, and I think it's good for promoting the Georgian tourism and money to the economy, but it's not my situation. Had to recharge my camera for some time. But yeah, speaking about my relationships with friends in Russia, recently I reconnected with some of my classmates, and talking to them helped me to paint the picture of how life in Russia looks now, because I also got a question about it. What is the specific impact of war on Russian people's lives? And yeah, of course, it is higher prices, inability to get some medicines from abroad, and car details, well, plane details, which is very important. Like, I would be so anxious to fly within Russia now. But speaking about life in general, both the government and the people try to think that nothing is happening. And talking to these friends also helped me to paint this picture. Like, Moscow is shining. The central streets that the authorities wash every day will make you to think that life in Russia is normal. But speaking of changes, I want to tell you why I actually reconnected with those classmates. Actually, because our common friend recently died at the war. He was a contract soldier on the Russian side, obviously. And this is how it happens now in Russia. Life is normal until a zinc coffin arrives to your hometown. And this guy who was my childhood friend, I knew him from the kindergarten. We studied at school together, and in the recent years our ways just separated. We did not communicate much, and in 2023 I actually learned that he is in Ukraine. I knew that he was a contract soldier in Khabarovsk. First, in 2020, he had his average Russian draft tour, when, you know, all young men in Russia are drafted. And after that, he prolonged his contract with that military base in Khabarovsk every year. And what happened is that when the war started in 2022, he already was on the contract. I didn't know about this. We did not communicate that time, but he saw my posts on Instagram, he saw my anti-war position or some resources that I was posting, and when I learned about this, I wanted to message him something like, what are you doing there? But I made it very calm, because he is already there. A message just said that I know that you are there. I hope that you will return to Russia as soon as possible and safe. And actually his wife answered me and asked to delete this message, but she said, I will transfer your words to him, but please delete this. Probably because they were scared that affiliation with me and my anti-war posts on Instagram will be dangerous for them. So I was like, okay, I deleted that message, and after that we did not communicate. And I was so shocked when I learned about his death, but at the same time it was expected, and there already was a funeral in Khabarovsk, and those two friends from Spassk and another friend went to that funeral, and they said that it was a military funeral, so the coffin was wrapped in the Russian flag, and there was orchestra, and there were military personnel. Now there will be a board with his name and face on our school in our hometown, stating that he is like the hero of the war. But I think that he is a victim of this war. Again, the worst thing is that he wasn't ideological. Like, he didn't go there voluntarily. He didn't buy to all this bullshit of the Russian propaganda. He just got into this machine and could not get away. Maybe you think, how? Why he didn't refuse this? Yes, he will be put to prison, but it's better than... Yes, but, you know, people in... remote Russian cities, many of them don't know their rights. They don't know about this project that help people to avoid the service or to escape Russia. He didn't know this, and his widow now, it's actually crazy to pronounce this word, she will get the monetary compensation. I don't know how much it is, 5 million rubles, which is about 50,000 USD. And I knew his family. I spent a lot of years with him. Like, he was my best friend, friend, but probably like 7 years ago we stopped communicating, but still we kind of knew about each other's existence. And now it is the first situation when someone among my peers, and especially such a close circle, dies. And it is just one example of how young men in Russia die just for nothing. I wanted to share this with you because I think it is an important part of living in Russia. So when you come across some YouTube videos about shiny Moscow streets, please remember that average people in Russia live like this. And there is statistics about how many Russian men died. We don't know exactly because probably the number is lowered, but Mediazone has a very precise statistics. So here is this number, but imagine how many more people just are not reported. How's the economic situation in Russia? If people live a good life, who cares if it's democracy or not? Well, I think this story I just told is self-explanatory. Still, I want to answer this question because it is very dangerous to think like this when you think that you're well off, that yeah, our country is not democratic, but maybe you have a good position and you have money. But who told you that you always will be in this position? What if your status changes? What if you become some of the vulnerable minorities or become a disabled person? Then you will not be able to get your rights. And also, even if you are rich, like, of course, in North Korea or in Turkmenistan or in Russia, there are rich people who are elites, but they have to compromise with the government. As you know, the West sanctioned all Russian politicians who are close to Putin, so they cannot escape. Another thing I would say to this is that people in Russia actually don't live a good life. If you look at the economical situation of some people, if you look at the statistics of having toilets in the house, if you travel and see how people live, you will understand this. Only 30% of the Russian people have an international passport, which means that they can travel to other countries. And only 3% of people have a Schengen visa, which is again probably an old information. Now it's even worse. I would rather be poor, but with the possibilities to grow in a free country than be rich in an authoritarian regime. Would you recommend an American to visit Russia? It is possible. You can come to the country with the cash, you can practice the language, visit some travel destinations. It is possible, but I would not recommend to do this for ethical reasons and, well, for safety reasons as well. Hi, I'm a student from Bangladesh. I'm interested in renting, taxes, and so on. And it's better for you to ask this at the forum for other students like you. But I have a mixed feeling about this question because it's kind of goes against all anti-Russian government stuff that I'm saying now. And at the same time, there are still people who are moving to Russia for studies, especially from the so-called collective South countries. I know that there are many Indian students, many students from different African countries. I am glad that you have this opportunity to get probably good education, especially only if we talk about like physics, engineering. But please stay away all the propaganda. Don't believe this bullshit. Just don't participate in this. This would be my recommendation. I also met some people here in Georgia who wanted to go to Russia for practicing the Russian language, but their universities now don't have connections with the Russian universities, so instead they have to go to some post-Soviet countries like Georgia or Kazakhstan to practice Russian, which I think is not a bad idea actually. What would it take for you to return to Russia? Would you rush back to join a movement that looked like it had a good chance of creating a change? Or do you think that you're drifting away from Russia? Well, yes, many Russian dissidents who are now abroad say that their criteria is a change of the regime, releasing the political prisoners, and canceling all these fake laws and I also have the same criteria. At the same time, I'm worried that, yeah, Putin will die, but who will change him? I really hope that even if this person will be from the current elite, at least this person will be more liberal and willing to talk to the West. Because here we can really see how personalities and personal whims can influence like the course of the whole country. But at the same time, I think that I'm drifting away because now I'm planning to live in Georgia. After that, I don't know, in some Western country. And it is so sad because I also got a lot of questions from you. What is the perfect country for you if you could choose? And answering this, ideally, I would live in Russia, probably in Moscow or in some big city, but also I would be traveling. I would want to live in Russia where I can speak my mother tongue. It is so important for me now. Happily here in Georgia there is a big community of the Russian expats, but I'm scared of what if I go to, I don't know, Portugal and there will be fewer people like this. And in the perfect scenario, to build my life there with the possibility to leave the country and come back whenever I want, and being able to participate in the political life, working for the further democratization of Russia. I really wish I could do this. So this is it. Oh my god, it was difficult to answer these very detailed questions. I hope that I managed to do this. I hope that I managed to cover everything and that it was interesting for you. And if you like my channel and want to support it, you can become my patron or a sponsor here on YouTube, or support me by all the other things that I will list under this video. I will really appreciate your support. I'm so glad that I filmed this video today. Now I'm relieved after finally talking about this all. So yeah, here's my friend Pigeon, who you were asking about all the time. Have a good day, good week, goodbye, пока-пока.